So over the holidays, I've been sick, flu. Um, Kids brought it home, hit the whole family. Um, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, a couple days after that, almost completely bedridden. Stayed at home for basically uh, about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Haven't really left the house much. And when you're at home like that a lot, and kind of I have my kids and family, wife around me. It's not like and you sometimes get into a bit of a malaise when you don't socialize outside of that or see the outside. You're kind of your reality becomes a little different than it may actually truly be. You get kind of you don't have the context of what is natural behavior, and so sometimes some negative thoughts might come into mind. So it's important to get out and not necessarily socialize, but get out and be around people just to have that experience, and it kind of elevates you a little bit. Even though I'm not somebody, here's one of my sayings is that I'm absolutely fascinated by people. I find that how people act and learn and behave and things that go on in their heads, it's so incredibly fascinating. I just don't like people very much because of it. I like watching people, but and even interacting with them on some level. But eventually, I just like okay, I recognize these behaviors, these patterns that people do, and I just don't like them very much. It's fascinating, but don't like them. But that's saying that it is still very important to get out and interact with people in some capacity, even if it's just having to move around them, navigate the world with other people. It kind of helps put you in a more realistic mindset of how things actually are. And so that's what I needed, and I did do that. I went out for a walk and walk around town. And I live in a bit of a urban area, suburban area, so a lot of stores and things that I can walk around and not necessarily interact with people, but directly, but I'm around people, so it makes it a little nicer. And you get a breath of fresh air, get some exercise, much needed after being inside for such a long time. And during a walk like that, and you're able to kind of, and I was by myself, just listening to some music, some lo-fi music. Oh, I should be playing some lo-fi music. Yeah, I was gonna do that. I'll probably do it for a next video. Create some music on the spot with. I'm a big fan of Suno AI, making AI generated music on the spot. It's fantastic. We'll do that next time. Yeah, so walking, listening to some lo-fi music, and kind of trying to just think about making sense of the world, getting thoughts aligned, processing information, and start thinking about the birth of knowledge. Where did it come from? Like, what was the first event in which became what we understand as knowledge? And I was thinking, basically, what knowledge is, to define it very quickly, is predicting the future. That's what knowledge is your ability to predict the future. It's recognizing patterns to say this is what's going to happen next, and then you can act accordingly to have the most beneficial effects from that pattern recognition. You're able to predict the future, you're able to act accordingly to have the most benefits from whatever that future may bring. And so the evolution, like where that came from, was probably long time ago, when there was just these single cell organisms, whatever the genesis of life, the first life that was on Earth, and there's these very simple organisms meandering around in probably some fluidic environment, and kind of like one of those early Roombas that that just would randomly go around your room and vacuum. It didn't really have a pattern. It was just randomly, like over long enough time, randomly going around your room, vacuuming. It would probably hit just about every spot that it could get itself into, and that was very similar to early organisms. Randomly moving around and either eating something or being eaten by something. And that then an avoidance of being eaten, or well, first say recognizing patterns was probably the first thing that led to one of those organisms being more successful than others. That it was able to identify a food source or a predator and either go to that food source or avoid that food source based on information that it perceived. Probably didn't have eyes, it probably had little feelers or something, or some kind of perception that it generated, that it had, that was able to identify a pattern and then act in its best interest to maximize the beneficial effects of what the future may have from that pattern. And that was the birth of knowledge. Pattern recognition, telling the future, led to organisms being more successful than others. And now it's not just that. That's basically the fundamental element. Now patterns aren't. I spoke about in a previous video apophenia, on how humans and basically all organisms sometimes draw patterns from things that don't actually have patterns. And there's an element of risk involved when trying to identify a pattern to form knowledge and to take action. And because not all data is not all information, all perceptions is accurate. Something might zig when you expect it to zag. You've seen something zag several times, and you're like, oh, I see you do this movement, so I'm gonna see it zag. Oh wait, no, it's zig this time. I didn't expect that. That's like a new pattern introduction, and or a more complex pattern. And that was another thing. The organisms that were able to identify more complex patterns were able to be more successful. So hence more complexity of thought, more complexity of knowledge, retention and understanding led to more successful life. But it was also an element of risk and adaptability. I'd imagine that let's say one of these organisms that has a single appendage, but has a lot of great pattern recognition capabilities, it might not do as well as another organism that has two appendages and not as great pattern recognition capabilities, or not as much experience. Because another thing, recognizing patterns is sometimes based on your experience. If you have a lot of experience, you can identify patterns more effectively. Double-edged sword as well, because sometimes our adherence to patterns that we've seen before can lead to detrimental effects, because you're inappropriately applying a pattern that doesn't, apophenia, you're applying a pattern that doesn't really exist or isn't appropriate for the new context. But the point of adaptability also being an important element of successful use of intelligence, or successful use of knowledge. I won't say intelligence, knowledge. Because an organism that with a single appendage that has a very good ability, or has a lot of experience in recognizing patterns, and is able to maximize within its capabilities the most beneficial effects of that pattern, they're still having to take risks on some patterns, because not all sometimes it zigs when sometimes it zags, sort of thing. And since it has a single appendage, it may not be able to adapt to that new pattern effectively. So the organism that has multiple appendages, more capabilities, is capable of adapting more effectively. And even though it may not have the better pattern recognition capabilities, or since it does have the capabilities of adapting, it is able to gain more experience and therefore be able to recognize more and more patterns, and then be more and more successful. So an element of luck is a big involvement in there, because there's a lot of factors that would impact a pattern that an organism may be trying to identify and take the advantage of, is impacted by the environment, and the environment has the organism itself may not have any control over that environment. Maybe the multi-appendage organism is more noticeable in this environment by predators, and therefore it doesn't necessarily in some environments, it would be perfect. It would do very, very well. But in others, where there's these predators, it may draw their attention and get eaten, so it wouldn't be successful. While the single appendage organism would, since it's not as easy identifiable. So basically, knowledge is the birth of knowledge came from pattern recognition, which is the ability to predict the future. The creatures that were able to predict the future more effectively were succeeded, and those that were able to adapt were able to deal with the inherent uncontrolled in aspects of the environment and be able to succeed better in most situations, but not always. The big part of it is luck. Circumstances that are beyond the control of the organism will impact the organism quite a bit, almost more than its ability to adapt and its ability to recognize patterns. So that I think is some elements that hold true today. You look at why some people are very successful, that make lots and lots of money. It's because they were lucky. In fact, people that are highly intelligent, they are able to succeed up into a point, but they aren't often the people that are most successful. It's the people that are most successful, the people that are often lucky. And you look at people like I don't really name a bunch of names, but just think of some very successful people in the world. They got there because of the environment that they were in was just lucky for them. They had opportunities that they were able to. The dice came out in their favor, and they were able to maximize that. So yeah, that helped me in making some sense of the world. Going out and walking and thinking about these things, and I think I might explore this a little bit further. I know these ideas are not fully fleshed out right now. I probably need to clean them up quite a bit, which I probably will over time. But I think there's some interesting lessons, interesting way of putting things when it comes to how knowledge works and the birth of it. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. We'll see what comes with it. Have a good night.